Well, first of all, it's Family Day, friends, and we wish you all a very happy Family Day, and it's a very appropriate time for us to be talking about this book. Look at this, Here I Am, a beautiful book written by Ardith Brott, and if you recognize the name Brott, you do so because you know her husband, Boris Brott, who is well known internationally as a recognized conductor and opera and symphony director, a motivational speaker. Welcome to the Brotts. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Lovely to be here.
And we're going to have you again tomorrow, so we're going to be able to cover a lot of territory. But I was thinking as I was looking at this beautiful book, Ardith, how relevant and current it is. South of the border, there's been a lot of controversy lately out of the White House with regard to the new rules of engagement, with regard to the Public Health Service and the funding, the costing of not only contraceptive pills, but also morning after pills. Mm-hmm. And as everyone knows, it's created quite an uproar with the Roman Catholic Church. And the whole issue of conservative values is being highlighted, not only by that, but also by the battle for the primaries with various contenders. And here's your book, Here I Am. And what I appreciated about it, beautifully illustrated, by the way, but also such an interesting perspective. Tell us about it and how you conceived of it.
Oh, I think like many good stories, I think it's a very simple, very strong story, but I conceived of it and I kind of cooked it for a while and kept mulling it over. And then we were in California one day. Boris was conducting his orchestra there, and I took a walk on the beach, and the first step I took, I started to say the story. And I said it word for word for word to what is in this book.
Really? Just to yourself?
I just said it to myself. I said it about 3 times, I think, and it always came out the same words. I went back into where we were staying, and I wrote it down, and that's the book.
And here's some of the first words, friends, and maybe you want to look over my shoulder here while I'm reading it. Soon I'll be ready for the most important day of my life so far, my birth. I wonder how I know this. I've been here for a long time. I don't know how long it's been, since forever, I think. How long is forever? Now, you're telling the story from the perspective of the baby in the womb, right?
Yes.
You're not, it's not a pro or anti stance. You're just saying, here's a little person on a journey.
That's right. It's just a story, and it's, of course, we have 3 children. I was always slightly interested in what I felt was a communication before they were born, because I do believe that they can hear. Of course, we know they can hear. We know they can experience things, but it was a story that I felt that I'd always told my children stories, and I felt that this was a story that I wanted to tell my kids, but by the time I conceived of it, they were all grown up. But when I sent it to the 3 of them, and Boris,
your 4th child.
My 4th child.
Yes.
When I sent it to them, I got the same response from all of them, which was just, I love this story. Boris was in San Francisco, and I read it to him over the phone, and at one point he was so quiet, uncustomarily so. He was so quiet, I said, "Are you still there? Did we get cut off?" And he said, "No, I'm here." And then he got to the end and he said, "I'm in tears."
Now, Boris, Ardith just said that she believes that children in the womb can hear and feel. You've got a very first-person account of that very reality. Tell us that story.
Well, I was, as a 6- and 7-year-old, playing the violin. I started, I don't really remember actually ever starting the violin. My parents put a violin under my chin somewhere around the age of 3, and I was in a string quartet. And I was quite amazed that certain works, only certain works, I would know the cello part instinctively. I could actually physically sit down and write out the cello part. I'd never seen it before. I came back home and I said to my mom, who was a very well-organized person, and I said, you know, I don't understand this. Why do I know the cello part? And I'm a violinist. Why, this doesn't make any sense. And she said, well, you know, I was playing the cello while I was carrying you, and just maybe, you know, as a joke, I think she said it, you heard it in utero. And so she went back over the records, and sure enough, these very works were the works that she'd played during the last trimester of her pregnancy with me.
And
so
that cello was right up against your
yes, of course,
your
it was
ear.
very close, very close indeed.
Wow.
Very close indeed. But Dr. Charles Varney, who's a psychologist, wrote a book, The Secret Life of the Unborn Child, and heard me being interviewed on the radio and telling this story, and consequently asked to interview me. And there's a chapter on that book that's devoted to this story. But it is now a proven fact that there are many other experiences like this, not just mine, that validate the fact that we can hear in utero in the last trimester of our pregnancy, and that music has a very strong effect upon the nature of that child and the way the child will react to the world later on, as the mother's voice does. And this book also talks about the mother's voice and deep voice, which is the name of the father.
Deep voice. Well, there you go. You know, there's a private member's bill that's before the Parliament on what is the point where an embryo becomes human, you know. And of course, this raises the whole issue of abortion, of course, and but apparently in Canada, our definition of what is human goes back to the 1700s, which, you know, back in the UK at that time, or Britain, you were human when you were viable outside of the womb. Until that point, you weren't human. And what you're suggesting here, just by this beautiful story and your own experience, Boris, is that your humanity is being shaped long before you see the light of day.
As far as I'm concerned, and as far as my story is concerned, yes, I think it is. And I think that it's as Boris said, I mean, when he tells his story, his mother didn't play those pieces after he was born, only during that trimester. So that's quite remarkable.
There's a certain divinity and inspiration. I think you have to believe in that, and it's in the case of the conception of music, it's very similar. It's often these books that Ardith writes and are very much inspired. I remember when our children were growing up, she would, rather than read books, she would create these stories, usually around a moral principle that she was trying to inculcate in our young people. And I encouraged her to write them down more as a family tradition to be able to hand over to the next generation. And seeing these in print and seeing them now able to be read by lots of people is for us a great joy.
Well, you know, so many children's books began exactly that way. A father or mother telling stories to their children. And lo and behold, they became books. Let's look over my shoulder here again for a minute, Mr. Director. Okay, we see that? See that page there? Boris is talking about deep voice. Sometimes the doctor listens to my heart beating. The doctor even lets Mummy and the deep voice. Mummy is the important one here, right?
Of course.
Yeah. and the deep voice is sort of that disembodied whatever.
Yes, he is, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes.
They get very excited. I don't know why they get so excited. I can hear Mummy's heartbeat all the time, but here I am waiting and waiting and waiting. No room left. My womb room is too crowded. I wonder how that happened. I feel everything's about to change. I think my big day, my birthday, will come soon. When you're writing this and conceiving it, you remember those 3 pregnancies.
Oh, very much.
You remember the development, the movement, the action going on inside your own body, right?
Yes, yes. The kicking,
the
moving,
Yeah.
But you also you remember them sleeping, and you remember them not sleeping, and you remember and as young mothers, we would all tell each other stories. I mean, for example, when our youngest was born, someone was asking one day whether or not we were going to have another brother or baby sister for him, and he said, just before I came out, I turned around and I had a look, and there was nobody else in there.
It's true. I mean, it's a true story, absolutely.
And then when I was pregnant with our youngest, our oldest son used to open my mouth, and he used to say, "Hello down there. Are you a boy or are you a girl?" You know.
But David actually had a certain divine inspiration about Benjamin's birth, because he knew immediately. He said, when anyone would ask, you know, what is if it's a girl or what it's a boy, and David will simply say, "It's a boy, and his name is Benjamin."
Really?
Well, we told him. We said when we took the 2 older kids, and we said, "You're going to have a little brother, a little sister," and he said, he was very solemn. And he said, it will be a boy, and his name will be Benjamin. He said, Benjamin? He said, yes, Benjamin Brott. And every day he asked me, when I was pregnant, how's Benjamin? And I would say, Benjamin was fine.
And how old is David at this point?
He was 4.
4.
4 and a half. And so about 3 weeks before Benjamin was born, I sat him down and I said, now listen, David, you do know that it could be either a boy or a girl. Oh, yes, 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 I know. But he said
We
it
didn't
isn't.
know. No.
He said it isn't. It's a boy. And Boris called from the hospital and got both kids, one on each phone, and said, I'm just calling to tell you that you have a brand new baby brother. And Alexander cried and said, no, not another boy. I wanted a sister. And David said, well, of course it's a boy. I told you it was a boy all
There you
along.
go. There you
So-
go. Out of the
I'd
mouth
like
of
to
the-
highlight the beauty of the drawings, because I think Dragon H, who is the illustrator, has done an absolutely superb job of really bringing to life Ardith's vision.
Yeah, she really has.
And they're extraordinarily beautiful drawings,
Here's
very
my,
sensitive.
you know, they're all beautiful, but here's my favorite picture right here. This is the one I like the most. There we go. Where she's, he or she is in the womb and playing with its toes. My mouth is a thing I found. I can open it. I don't know what good it is other than the thumb sucking part. And then at the end of the book, there's blanks you can fill in.
Yes.
Then they said, I think he looks like her, himself. Let's call her him, and you fill in the blanks.
You fill in the blanks because I think children really want to personalize it.
Yeah.
And this is a way of saying, and this is what happens when they're born, and they should understand that when they're born, there's an immediate instinctive reaction from both sides of the family. Oh, you have your father's nose and your mother's feet, or whatever it is. So parents automatically, and it's not sort of laying claim. It's a natural reaction of parents and families.
And your target audience really is the children. You want the children to read this or to see this.
Yes, I want the children to read it, but I think it really is a story for everyone. I believe it's our first story. And so therefore, I think as important as it is for children to read, I think it's also an opportunity for us, for you and for me and for everyone, to reflect and think back to our own, and the stories perhaps your parents told you or my parents told me, so that in that stand, yes, it is for children, but.
Well, as the scriptures say, we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Indeed, the fearfully aspect, I think that one of the things that the book addresses, that there is something beautiful and not fearful about the idea of birth. And the idea of fearful, I think, can sometimes bring about concerns for both the parents and young people being born. And the idea of being born, it's a very difficult subject to handle sensitively. And I think this book does it beautifully.
I agree with you. Friends, the book is called Here I Am, and we are making this a special 2-day offer, 2 days only. Today, Family Day, and tomorrow. And the way you can get your copy is by logging on to crossroads.ca, or you can call 1-800-265-3100. And remember your best ministry gift as you call in for Here I Am, written by Ardith Brott and beautifully, beautifully illustrated by Dragana Miladinovic Etch. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
We'll be back with the Bratts again tomorrow, so you be sure to tune in. More after this.